All right, there it is. The new song. Uh, it's called "Reckless Abandon." Thirsty Deer. So go to your streaming service of choice, put in Thirsty Deer, put in Reckless Abandon, and you will get that jam right there. Welcome back to your home for rock and roll on YouTube. This is the Thirsty Deer Studio. I'm Gary. Welcome. We're making music tonight. I cut this real short. I was mixing a song right up until like 10 minutes before this. And, that's how I roll. I've got a topic for tonight, but we can talk about anything you all want to talk about. It is September 28th in the year of the Lord 2025. And we're just rocking, talking about music. I read something very interesting tonight. It was on Google. Ableton put it out, right? And it was talking about people releasing their music and how a lot of people are scared to do this or don't know when to release the music when it's ready, because we can always tweak it more. A lot of times we're working in a studio alone and we don't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. And I thought this was an interesting topic because it's something I used to struggle with. Now I have like a certain process that I use. I have ways, like just not really a checklist, but kind of a checklist in my mind about how I get songs ready to be released. So I'm mixing the whole time I'm working on a song, right? I'm getting the sounds the way I want. Number one, through the microphones when I'm recording. And if something doesn't sound right, when I play it in and hear it back, I re-record it. And then the whole time I'm mixing, I'm getting my levels the way I want. I have all this built into my template. That's important. It's an important thing to get your template the way you want it, and that comes with time. That comes with years of making music. I'm actually pulling up the newest project I'm working on. So that song that we did the intro on, Reckless Abandon, that just came out last week, but we're already very deep into another song. In fact, it's ready to have a couple of the little arrangement tweaks and then get drums put on, and then we're going to start working on vocals on it. So I played this live stream. I played a few things. I played what I have currently, just a few guitar parts, bass parts, some synthesizers. So it's a pretty realized idea for a song. I have some things that I want to move around in the session. Like I'm still going back and forth on the flow of the song, right? So I'll have an idea for a song. I'll work out some parts that go together, like in the same key, parts that build off of each other. And I don't keep a steady tempo through most of my songs, right? I like for it to have a flow, build up to a faster tempo, then maybe taper back down, or maybe start at a faster tempo, work its way down, or just make it where I'm not putting everything on the grid, right? I like to shut off the warping on Ableton, put things in at the tempo, the feel that I like, right? I'll have a basic tempo for it, and I'll play to that feel, to the click track, but if it's a little bit off, as long as I have the feel the way I want, that's what's the most important. And then that feel, because I'm following the click track, but not exactly to the click track, I have the feel in my mind, and I can just play the drums right behind it the way I want. So this just came up. I just pulled up this current session I'm working on. It looks just like it did in the last live stream, except we added acoustic guitar today. The acoustic guitar isn't a feature. It's just a part that's like backing the other electric guitar parts, adding some weight to those electric guitar parts. This is a trick that's been done all through music, all through recording, with the Rolling Stones. Like I'm a huge Stones fan, and the Stones are a band that always did this. Like, many times they would build off an acoustic guitar track. Or if you think of like Jumpin' Jack Flash with those, what you think are electric guitars, that main riff of Jumpin' Jack Flash, those are really overdriven with the mic preamps, acoustic guitars. I actually think Keith Richards did it on a tape machine that he had and was just overdriving those preamps. It's a very cool thing to do. I'm not overdriving the acoustic guitars to that level on this, but they do have some grit on them. And I'll play these tracks for you in a minute. So that's the only thing we've added since the last live stream. For the whole thing, those acoustic guitars are just adding some weight, like I said, to the electric guitars. I have stereo guitars left and right, and this acoustic guitar is panned right for most of the song. And then there's one section where it's just a mono guitar going through my Mesa Boogie Dual Rectifier, so it's a heavier, distorted part, just mono, but I do have the close mic panned to the left, and then I have a room mic up. I'm getting very into room mics with my recordings because every time I put up another microphone, it's like my shit just sounds better. It gets better the more mics you put up. And you don't always use all these mics. Like, I've got a lot of mics up, and I can just activate a track for those, whatever mic, a mic on the drum kit. Or what I did on this one is I had the close mic on the dual rectifier, and I have a Royer R10 on my Fender Twin over there. So it's about the same height. It's just across the room. I have the Twin on this side, and the dual rectifier is right over here. So they're the same height. It's a good place for a room mic, but it's about 20 feet away from the amp. So I have that panned to the opposite side. So the room mic's on the right and the close mic's on the left on this one section of the song, but it's just a mono guitar part. So since that room mic's quite a bit lower, I kept this acoustic guitar part and did a double and pan that on the side with the room mic. You'll hear what I'm talking about. Let's just play this track so you can hear what I'm talking about. You heard the last new music that I put out last week. And now we're already this far into a new project this week. So I just wrapped it up. I wasn't working on this project like while I was working on that project. This has just happened since last week, all these tracks. So this is a bunch of guitar tracks, bass, and synthesizer. Just synth on part of it, only one section. But this just goes to show you, if you keep working steadily, and I work a 40-hour-a-week job that kicks my ass. This week we were on overtime, but I only had to actually do overtime 2 of the days. But it's like, and I'm a single full-time dad, and when I say single dad, I have my son 100% of the time when I'm not at work, and then my mom has him. So, he's always with me. And so I don't do any of my music thing. That's why these live streams are mostly late at night, because I wait till he goes to bed, right? But I do my music when he's in bed, and I get a lot of work done that way. I can sometimes only record for 3 hours a night because I have to get up for work the next morning very early. But as long as you're persistent in the studio and keep things going, keep work happening, you can make music. You can get out a bunch of songs. I just posted a thing earlier, actually it was yesterday, my earnings that I've made since 2024. Since the beginning of 2024, I've released 11 songs, and these are songs that they're no bullshit. I put in a lot of work on these songs, and in the time that I made those 11, I probably threw 7 or 8 away that didn't meet my standards to be released. So I'm not just putting out everything, I'm putting out shit that I feel like has integrity. The vocals, I feel like, are me. They're genuine. Talk about what's going on in my mind or things that I've been through. I try and keep the music real. And the guitars, all the instruments, the instrumentation is music the way that I like to hear it. I grew up on old school rock and roll, and that's the shit I like to play. So we're from Louisville, Kentucky, just up the road from Nashville. If you watch YouTube music, you know that the Nashville music people are the biggest thing going on YouTube. We're not too far away from that, but we're doing a completely different thing. You know, they're doing the country music thing, which is cool. They make a living at it. I don't make a living doing this, not yet. But I make a lot of music, you know what I mean? And it's straight up rock and roll. And it's not, you know, that chugging heavy shit most of the time. It's just rock and roll, you know? So let's listen. Here's what it is. Also, let me say, subscribe, get in the chat, tell me how you work in the studio, tell me what kind of music you're into. I've been doing a lot of these live streams, basically 3 a week for the past 2 months. I haven't had a chance to put out many regular videos except for that music video that you saw at the beginning of the live stream for my new song. I usually put out the long form videos, usually 1 a week, but since I've been doing these live streams, I haven't had a chance to do that. So if you subscribe to the channel, it helps me out. I'm trying to get a community going here. Get in the chat, talk to me, let me know your workflow. Let me, you know, if you have any questions about anything, about life, put them in the chat and we'll talk about it. Let's listen to the song, though, what I have so far. This has no title. The working title on it is just Rat, because I was using a Rat pedal for a lot of it. But here it is. Alright, so that last section, that was the section with the room mic across the room from the Mesa Boogie, and you could hear it was a lot more open sounding than the rest of the songs because they had stereo guitar parts, stereo electric guitar parts, sometimes 3 guitars with left, right, like, and then another one somewhere, not center, but like middle way over to the right or to the left, like pan 25 right or 25 left or 30. So it's a lot more open sounding on that one section. And I'm thinking about probably making that the intro section because I'm really digging the open sound with the room mics. If you listen to AC/DC, things like this, old school rock and roll, a lot of those sounds you hear are the room mics, you know, or mics 3 feet off the cabinet, you know, U87s like this. This isn't an actual U87. This is a United Twin 87. It's a very accurate clone of Neumann U87 microphone, and it sounds great. all the reviews you read about this microphone say how great it is and how much it sounds like a Neumann. And it's a cool mic. It's what you're hearing my voice through right now. It's not just up here to look good or something. You know, it's what you're hearing my voice through. I like to do these live streams with a large diaphragm condenser because it's the way that I like to hear voiceover work or you know, just dialogue or vocals on a song. It's the sound that I'm used to hearing in music and like on movie trailers, things like this. So I try and, you know, have some integrity about how I do these live streams and how I make my YouTube videos as well. So I like to use these mics, and they're a lot harder work. A lot more work goes into using a large diaphragm condenser. Like if I was using something like a Shure SM7B, I wouldn't have to worry nearly as much about my air condition turning on while I'm talking as I do with this mic. I have to get the house cool and then turn off the air conditioner before I start using this mic for a live stream or for a YouTube video, because it picks up all that. If a semi happens to go down the road in front of my house, you will definitely hear it, even though I have an expander, which is like a gate, basically. If you know what a gate is, an expander is the same type of deal, except it does it in a more even kind of way where it's not as choppy as a gate. But if a semi was to go, even with that expander on, you would hear it through this microphone very clearly, very loud, because these microphones are very sensitive. They've got a large capsule in them, but they are the sound of rock and roll, and they're also the sound of room mics on guitar amps and room mics on drums. Like Neumann U87s are that microphone, right? But because I want to have my sound good for the YouTube videos as well as in my music, they're for sure getting used in my music. And every video that you see, I use a microphone like this. And like I said, it is a lot more work. But, you know, we have to do that work. So I put up gates on the tracks that the mics go through, and I shut off the air conditioning and then pray that nothing crazy goes on outside. If I did something like on 4th of July or something, we would have to use a different microphone. But that's what you're hearing. Actually, you're hearing a Royer on the room mic on that last section. The guitar room mic is the Royer R10. So what I did on that section was panned the Royer to the right 50, which is all the way to the right, and the one that's on the dual rectifier was all the way to the left. And then I wasn't sure I was going to put that acoustic guitar track on there, but I did. So since I had that track all the way left on the dual rectifier for the close mic, I went ahead and panned the acoustic for the whole song 35 right, and it fit in good right there. A lot of times I'll do panning automation and move things around, which you can hear like right here, this really dirty kind of affected guitar. If you listen in headphones right here, you'll hear it go from the left over to the right side just on this one section. Let me play it for you. Hear that? So I do little automation things like that, and I'm not anywhere near the mixing stage of this yet, right? We're still working on the song. But I knew that that was going to have to happen because of the number of guitar tracks I was using. And if you look on here on this track, on this song too, you can see this track. This was the track that started the whole song right here. And it's muted now. So the track that I built everything off of, I'll go ahead and solo that for you. This is where this whole song started, and it's not even in the music anymore because I played some other stuff that I wanted to keep. And it fits good in the track like this, but I just like the other guitars, and I don't want the mix too saturated with guitars like triple tracked. I want it to be more open. That one section just has the one electric guitar and one acoustic and a room mic. The rest have left and right guitars. This would have made 3 guitars for this section, so it just had to go. I like to leave a lot of room for the vocals, for percussion. Drums are getting ready to be the next thing on this song. Like I said, I'm going to do a couple little arrangement tweaks and then we're going to put drums on the song possibly tomorrow. So the next live stream, you'll probably hear this with drums. But let me play you this track that started the song, so you can hear where my head was at when I was just coming to grips with this idea of what the next song was going to be. So here it is. So you get the gist, right? That's where a song starts, right there. You know, just having that idea for a song, and then all that other shit I built up around it. Billy's in the chat. Hey, dude, what's up? Rock on, man. You know, we're just making music tonight. If you have anything, any questions, put them in the chat. Anything you want to talk about, put it in the chat. Anybody, if you're watching this later, get in the comments, leave me a comment. I always answer comments unless you're an asshole. Then I'll just block you. You know, we don't have, you know, nobody has time for that shit. It's crazy enough world, right? So that's where we're at with the mix. If you want to look at the synthesizer, that's only on one section of the song. This is another thing I do. It's an important thing to talk about with music production, I feel like, as well, because it can get in tracks to where, like, when you're building a song where you can have 100 tracks of just bullshit, right? Like, you'll have 2 mics on a cabinet, or like I had the room mic and the microphone on the Mesa. Bounce those down to 1 track, save space. You know, bouncing things down is like the way the Beatles worked. Like when Sgt. Pepper's came out in 1967, all they had was 4 tracks. And go listen to A Day in the Life, and like, you can't imagine how that can be done on 4 tracks. And the way it was done is bouncing things down. Like, so they'd have drums usually on 2 tracks, and then they would have like a mellotron on a track, and then an acoustic guitar. Then they'd bounce that mellotron and that acoustic guitar down to 1 track, bounce the drums down to 1 track from 2, or leave them as 2, and then put 2 electric guitars on, bounce those to the track with the mellotron and the acoustic. Then they would put on lead vocals and backing vocals on 1 or 2 tracks, like a stereo track probably for vocals. Actually, back then, I'm not sure how they did it. A lot of, like, back in the early Beatles days, a lot of things were weird. Like, the drums would be all the way on the left or on the right, and then everything else would be on the opposite side because they were working with so few tracks, right? But bouncing things down is always good. And I have some mic preamps here where I don't even have to do that as much. I can take 2 microphones, and these Chandler TG2s will mix those 2 microphones down to 1. So I have a mono 1176 compressor here. I can bounce those 2 tracks down to 1, 2 microphones, either on the same source or different sources, like a room mic and a mic on the cabinet. Bounce those, or sum those 2 microphones down to 1 output of the TG2. Then go into this 1176 compressor that's in my rack. And normally you would need a stereo compressor to do that because you have 2 microphones, right? But if you have summing, or if you're mixing through, you know, like an outboard mixer or a PA mixer, whatever, you can do it that way. And then, you know, there's a lot of ways to sum things down so you don't have just a crazy mess in your DAW session, right? You have all those things in your DAW session and it gets cluttered, then the mix becomes overwhelming and you can't make shit happen because you're too overwhelmed with all the shit you got going on, right? It's just a thing. Let me see what's in the chat. Is there an order that's optimal to record all the tracks? I know some bands are just gifted. Well, yeah, if you got a band, that's probably the optimal way to do it. Like, with, you know, tracking everything at once, but then you still have to have isolation. Like if I was to bring a band in here and try and record everything else in this space, it would be so tight. It would be hard to do, right? Everything would have to be really low volume, and what we would do is put the guitar amps in another room, run long mic lines so we have some isolation, have the drums out here, and then try and do like probably just do the vocals afterwards. But the way I work is to overdub everything. So the way my music starts, like 99% of the time, is with a cool guitar riff, lick, just chord progression. I'll put that down like I just played that little guitar part that I said started out the song, right? I recorded that probably, I put out my new song last Monday. I'd say I recorded that little guitar thing last Wednesday, one single track, and then I built all these other guitar tracks around that in the past week, you know, just layering one thing after another. And there's no real optimal way to do it, just whatever works for you. However you're feeling it. Like I'll usually get the guitars done. Sometimes I'll put a little synthesizer just to have like a pad underneath things. And I might even put like some percussion on just to like make it a little danceable, or, you know, just give it a little more feel, whatever the track wants. And then I'll put drums on. So my order is usually guitars, synths and keys, bass, then drums, and then vocals are last, and then like background vocals after that, and then the mix, and then mastering, right? Yeah, you too, man. You too. We're the knowledge is just from doing it, you know. Shit sounded shitty for a long time. You just have to keep doing it, you know. And it's like it doesn't matter if people hear it. It doesn't matter if people see it. It's like you do it because music's what you love to do, right? It's like I could be watching football right now, but, you know, I'd rather be doing this shit because it's like I went for 40 years listening to music and wishing I could make stuff like that. For a long time I couldn't even remember the shit I wrote because I didn't have nothing to record it on. Now we got all this at our fingertips, and it's like I got to do it, you know. I have to do it. It's just I had like a lot of this stuff since I was a kid, but I couldn't get any songs out because, you know, you had to go to a big studio or be a signed band to do this. Like a tape machine costs $100,000 minimum, you know, when a lot of the music I love was coming out. That's what you had to have if you wanted a home studio, and it just wasn't going to happen, right? So that's what we do now that we have the opportunity to do it, and I feel blessed to be able to do it. It doesn't, you know, it's like, and it's a document for all of time, right? Or for as long as these streaming services support your music, and then hopefully you still have it on a file somewhere, and shit, maybe my son can put it back out in 50 years or something, you know? It's like, it's always going to be there as long as you stay on top of documenting it and transferring things over, like when these SSD drives are replaced with something smaller, or, you know, if it goes to a chip that's implanted in us, or whatever it happens in the future, as long as you transfer that over, this is going to still be around, right? So it's just, it's cool to be able to do it. And I feel like a lot of people that are making music now that never grew up in the analog days don't really appreciate what it is to be able to make and put music out. And I do not take it for granted. That's why I'm in this studio every night. That's why I spend a lot of money on all this shit, you know. If you're gonna do it, I feel like it needs to be sounding good too. And you don't need a lot of expensive shit to do it, but it's having some helps, you know. Like I'll put things back through one piece of this analog gear right before I send the mix out to the streaming services, and it always gives it an extra 10%. It makes things feel more open. It makes things have more dynamics. It gives more space in the mix. You think, well, I'm using stereo wideners or whatever in my mix. that doesn't even come close to just running through a pair of analog mic preamps with transformers in the signal. It's like the way it was done for all those years is, I don't know if it's because it's the sound we know and everything else sounds harsh, digital sounds harsh, or if it's just that much better, but it's definitely the sound I know. And the mixes always sound better when I go through some of this gear in the rack. Um, let's see. Where are we at on time? 9:30. Okay. Still got 30 minutes. That's what's up. Um, so this thing I was watching, so we got into this track, right? But mainly I wanted to talk about the workflow for making records, putting things out. And I read this thing. It's really cool because like when I'm at work, I've always got my earbuds in and I'm listening to this shit too about how to make music and, you know, like classic albums or just anything to do with music production. I'm in there, I'm watching it, I'm listening to it. I'm trying to learn and grow too because I'm nowhere near, you know, the level I want to be. The music sounds good. I feel like it competes with music that's out there that you're going to hear anywhere nowadays. I can make those sounds, but I still have a long way to go. You know, I'm talking about there's legends that do this still that are completely in the box, and that's amazing to me because I need some of this analog gear to get my music sounding the way I want. And there's people that do it at a very high level that could use all the analog gear and have people like Andrew Sheps. He had a big Neve console for the longest time. Now he's completely in the box. But the thing about that is the tracks that he gets are done through the best analog gear. So they already have that flavor when they go to him, right? They've got a lot of that, those transformers and tubes and saturation and harmonics baked in when he gets the tracks. But like today I was listening to Audio Slave, Show Me How to Live. That track's just, it's one of the best sounding things that's ever been recorded. I think that's Costi, Rich Costi. I think that's who did that. And it's, man, it sounds so great. It's like Pink Floyd fidelity, but like Rage Against the Machine sounds and Chris Cornell, you know what it is. And it's just so great. And like, that's like one of the more modern things that I listen to and try and shoot for with my recordings because it's just so good. But this thing I was reading today about people being timid about putting their mixes out or not knowing when to put their mixes out, their songs out, right? A lot of people, I feel like, think they have to have a mastering engineer. You don't need that, right? If you make the mix as good as you can while you're recording and then do a little bit more mixing after it's all done, and then I'll show you what my mix is. I mean, my mastering template is, right? It's just all down here on this master 2-bus track. I have, this is saturation that's first. It's Analog Design Black Box. All this does is put tube emulation. So it's like having tubes in the computer. You can see them right there. See those tubes? And it's giving you saturation. So that's the first thing I hit. Then I've got 2 EQs here. I've got this Better Maker, which it's like a, this is a parametric EQ, kind of like an API. If you think about parametric EQs, like an API parametric EQ, where you can make the EQ curves wider or narrower right here. You see the sharp and wide. So if you're using like a sharp curve, those are good for cuts of specific frequencies. Or if you really want to make things punchy in one area, make that curve sharp, put it on a narrow Q. On other EQs, it'll be like a narrow Q, turn it all the way to the left, like on an SSL EQ. And that'll give you a real sharp Q, and you can boost just certain frequencies, make them really punchy, and it does a really cool thing to the sound. And then on this other side is another EQ. This is a Pultec style EQ, which is more broad, tube EQ. I'll show you what an actual Pultec is because I have one of these on the Master Bus 2. It takes a minute for these UA plugins to come up all the way. They're a little bit slow loading, especially when I'm streaming. But you can see these are just 2-band EQs, basically highs and lows, or you can, that high band, you can switch it to more of a mid band. And with the Pultec, people usually leave them most of the time all the way on the broadest Q, right? These are old EQs from the 50s that just sound amazing. They put tubes in the path as well. So you can see you just have 20 hertz, 30 hertz, 60 or 100 hertz on the low end. And there's a cool Pultec trick where you can boost and attenuate the same frequency. So if you put that like on 30 where it is now, it'll actually be boosting around 50, which is a good frequency for the kick drum. And if you say you boost on the bandwidth, you put it on a broad bandwidth all the way at 10 like this, and then you boost to say 5 or 7, and then put a little bit of attenuation too. What that does is it makes a dip. It's called the Pultec trick, right? It makes a dip right before the boost. So if you're boosting at 30, it's really going to hit around 50 hertz. It makes a broad boost. But right before that, it dips down, and it's a really cool sound because it's really creating some space for that boost. And it's what I use a lot of times to give me a really punchy kick drum sound or a really punchy bass sound if I move that up to about 100. With the bass, a lot of times I'll use something like a SSL instead because you can really get surgical with the EQ and go on a real narrow band. And then over here you have the high frequency, 10, 12, 16 is the upper, like trebly higher end. And then this is all higher mid-range, 3, 4, 5, and 8. So that's all you have on a Pultec, but it's like the most classic EQ of all time. And then, so usually I'll use one of those 2 EQs, sometimes both, but sometimes all it needs is one. Then I have a SSL. This is the actual SSL made this plugin. I was using one by Waves for a while, but I like this one better. SSL bus compressor. So like a SSL console has this in the center section. We're using it on a plugin. The SSLs came out in the late 70s, the E series SSLs, and then so SSLs are the sound of the 80s and everything since, right? People a lot of times will record on a Neve, which is kind of like the analog gear I have here. I have a Neve preamp and some Chandler preamps, which are Abbey Road style, like what they used in Abbey Road, or a Neve. And those are like Neve consoles a lot of people will use to track through, and then they'll mix on an SSL because you have those surgical EQs and compressors on every channel. And then you have this bus compressor right in the center section, which adds glue dynamics, makes things really punchy. And I just do a little bit of compression on here, usually never making this needle go past 8. Usually it's less than 4 on the compression. And then a lot of these I have turned off right now, but I use most of these in the mastering chain. The last thing I go to before I hit the limiter is this Ampex tape machine. So this is emulating tape, you know, the way records used to be made. Let me close some of these other plugins so the screen doesn't look too crazy. But this Ampex tape machine, it's cool. It really giving you some more harmonics, giving you some cooler top end that's not harsh, but like there's just some great presets on here, like this pushed modern classic preset sounds great. And then I'll tweak it a little bit. Down here I've got this open where I can do some little EQ things, or you can hit the wow and flutter. You can even put the hiss from the tape machine in there if you want. I don't find that I want the hiss in my music, but some people might want that if you're going for a more lo-fi kind of sound. And then down here, let me show you what I have. So this is all the plugins on my 2 bus, the master. Like this is how I master my music, right? So this is what you've seen everything all the way to the tape machine, which is right here. Then this is an external audio effect, which that means it's sending things out to my rack. And I'm going through a stereo pair of mic preamps to get that saturation and that openness that I told you I got from going to my rack on all my music. So out of 11 songs, I've had all this gear for most of them, and only one of them did I prefer the in the box mix over the mix going through the analog gear, just through a stereo pair of mic preamps. Because, you know, you think you buy mic preamps to record with and they're going to sound great, which they do, but as much for the sound I get on the master is why I love these things, man, because they sound great putting the music out back through it. So I just put this external audio effect right there on the 2 bus, and it sends things out on channel 5 and 6 to these preamps and then back in, and that's all I do. And I, you know, if I want them to sound a little bit hairier, I'll go up a couple notches on the input gain and then roll back on the output gain, usually just 1 notch. You can maybe get 2 out of it depending on how hard you're hitting it, and that'll really give you some more harmonics and make things feel a lot punchier. You know, it's cool to really turn knobs and mix that way. I like to send things out to the analog gear. It's a whole different way to mix, and it always sounds for sure different than the plugins. I would say better, but it really is just a different thing. Even these things they're all emulating real gear that you can buy and spend thousands of dollars on if you want to. The plugins are great, but they are a different thing. And then the last thing I hit, this is a great thing. This is my metering and limiter. This is called the Brainworks Master Desk Pro. So I use some clipping on here. The clipping just gives you a little more saturation, because all of those things that I'm doing with saturation are giving things more weight, making it punchier, making it hit harder. And then like this glue over here, this is just doing a little more of that SSL type glue. Then you got a stereo link right here where you can link your compression. I usually don't use that because I'll usually have different things going on the left and the right and not want them linked, you know. You can do it, experiment with everything, see what you think sounds best. Then you have this XL knob. I think this is adding like 3rd and 5th order harmonics. I read about it. I think it's 5th order harmonics. It just makes things sound bigger. I don't really know how it does it, but I usually put some of that on the mix. And then this THD is adding more harmonic distortion. So there's lots of ways that we're getting distortion, and this isn't like distortion like you would think of with the guitar pedal. This is distortion that's just adding weight, clarity, making things hit harder. And it's the way that you get your music to be loud without actually clipping or hitting the LUFS too hard. So if we play some of this, you'll see it hitting this red is the LUFS meter. This is how streaming services listen to your music. And if you go too high on the LUFS, they say -14, but most people have their mixes a lot louder than that. I usually have mine topping out around -8, -7 LUFS, because if I don't, it's not nearly loud enough to compete with the song before or the song after it on the streaming services. And your brain automatically hears louder music as better music. And so if your stuff isn't sounding as loud as the stuff that played before it or the stuff that comes after it, people, you know, they're gonna be like, what's this? You know, it's a joke, right? So you have to get that shit loud, but you can't really do it necessarily all with volume. You have to do it in other ways, like saturation, like parallel compression, like harmonics, like duplicating tracks sometimes. There's a lot of ways to get loudness. So if you just duplicate a track, a lot of times I think your brain hears it as like 3 dBs louder, just duplicating the track and having the same track twice at the same volume. I think I heard that somewhere. I would think it would depend on how loud you have the music, but if you're at a basic overall level of like -18, they say that it's like 3 dB louder just duplicating a track. I don't really do that duplication thing much. I've done it before, but once I learned how to mix pretty well, I started using things like parallel compression a lot more. And parallel compression is really cool. Like if my drums are loud enough but they're just not hitting in the way I want, I'll put another compression track on an aux and it just sounds right if I fuck with it a little bit and tweak it. You know, learn how to use a compressor. If you're gonna make music, you have to learn how to use compression because it's how we hear music now. You know, there's some people, especially with older music, that they didn't really use 2-bus compression, but I just don't see how it would compete the way we listen to music now. So I'll let you see where this. So there's no drums on this, but I just want you to see this LUFS meter so you can see what I'm talking about. LUFS just means perceived loudness. And you need something on your master bus that has a LUFS meter just so you can see where you're at. I don't use meters very much, but I do use a LUFS meter because if you're serious about streaming your music, you want it to be competitive but not crazy. So I'll have my track hitting. I've got the output trim back to -0.2. That's just so it's not hitting 0 and clipping, but the music's not actually getting that loud on the perceived loudness. So here we go. So you can see with no drums or anything on, I'm already hitting -11. So I'm already hitting -11 with no drums and no vocals on, which is louder than the streaming services recommend that you have it, right? And it's still going to get louder than that because the drums on this are going to hit hard. The vocals are going to be loud. So we're going to, at the end of this, probably be up around -8, but that's cool. That's about where I want to see it at this point in the game. So that's, you know, a little bit about where I'm at with this new song. Let me mute this track again because I might save that. I'll probably do some work on it after we shut off the live stream. But I want to play you out with another song. That's how I always roll out on these live streams. Is I play a song on the intro. If I have something new out, I'll play that, and then I'll play a song on the outro, something older. Let me just pull me back down here, and we're gonna roll out with a new song. I didn't quite hit the hour mark, but I said what I wanted to say on this, and we're gonna play a video to roll out on. Hold on just a second. Okay. Get me back up here for a minute while this is closing out. Because, alright. Get this all back the way I want it for the next stream. So, it was cool having my buddy in the stream tonight, man. First person who got on and chatted with me, which I really dig that. You know, we're trying to build a community here. We want people subscribing, signing on, talking about music. If you make music, I know Billy makes music. He's one of the people that I played in bands with. Grew up playing guitar with that guy. Cool dude. Glad he was in the stream. And just get on here and talk to me about your workflow. Talk to me about the kind of music you're into. Talk to me about your day. And subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. I'm going to play you out with another one of my songs, just so you can hear the kind of music we make and maybe have something to rock out on. Let's go to distributed masters and music videos in here. Let's try. Let's do this one. Let's do this one. This one kind of rocks. So we'll do this one. And you all have a good night. We'll be back with another live stream. Probably 2 more live streams this week. We'll try for Tuesday or Wednesday night. And then next weekend, I'm trying to make this a consistent thing, and I've got to fit in some time to get the long form videos out too. Here we go. If you go on streaming services, type in Thirsty Deer, type in Black Ties and Deadlines. This is Black Ties and Deadlines. Have a good night.